there is so much that I want to do. Like I have a list of people that I need to have lunch or coffee or dinner with. I have 146 unread text messages right now and like endless amounts of things that I want to do for business. My desire is so strong to get these things done, but the capacity that I have feels like it's at a very low level. And so that is exactly what we are talking about today. We're talking about the difference of desire and capacity, how to determine which is which and what to do with it and how to move forward, and maybe even some tips of like how to gain capacity in your day, because there are areas that we can control what we do and what we give our energy to. So that is where we are going today. Welcome to the Connection Codes podcast. This is the podcast where we break open the emotions that take us from being disconnected to connected in our relationships and in ourselves. I'm your host, Tera Wages, and joining me is trauma-informed coach, lead Connection Codes coach, and a co-creator of the Connection Codes, Echo Hill, and her amazing mom.
Echo Hill Vedder.
I always do that. Echo Hill Vedder. Always emphasize the hill so people know that you belong to each other. Echo Hill Vedder and her incredible mom, Phyllis Hill, the co-founder of the Connection Codes, which is the guide to human connection. And we're so glad you're here.
Hello, friends. So it's always super special for me to have Echo in the studio. Often I think Glenn is here when we have Echo in the studio, but today he's not. It's Tera. It's the three girls, which I love too. So this is very special. Hope to do more of these in the future. We went on a road trip. If you've been listening, you've heard that already. And I think this came out like at the beginning of our trip where you started sharing with me that concept of desire versus capacity. And I think when you first said those two words, I was like, wait, stop. Say that again. Desire versus capacity. I'm like, okay, I need to write that down because somehow I just knew that this was big. It was going to be big for me. And I think now every day I am running things through the filter of my desire versus my capacity.
Wow.
And I'm very almost surprised by really that filter. And, you know, Tera in the introduction just said, like, she has the desire that's mega huge. And yet you got to go, but what is my capacity? And often, the two don't match up.
Yeah.
And I think that I made huge life changes last year. So if you're new to this podcast, you might want to back up some and hear some of the last year's podcasts, because I realized that I was living a life that was not lined up, like a lot of desire, but not the capacity. And I actually had to make some huge life changes to make room for what I really knew that I wanted, because the capacity was limited. And as many of you know, like I was taking care of Glenn's mother, and I was taking care of our compound, our huge property, our huge house.
It does make it sound like a cult, just to be clear. Yeah, it was this. Other people weren't, well, you had Airbnbs on the property and things like that.
Rental spaces, right.
It was more than just a one house and land, is what you're trying to convey.
We had multiple houses on our property with rental people and just a lot to keep up with. I realized that pretty much maxed out my capacity. And then I started saying, but this is not my desire.
Wow.
So actually, mine was like almost backwards. It wasn't like, oh, I have all this desire, just not enough capacity. It was like, that's not even my desire.
Yeah.
And that's what I realized last year, sitting in Cabo in very quiet moments. And I went, wow, what am I doing? Like, you know, and I don't know if it's at what point in your life you have these moments. Like maybe it's because I'm in my 60s and I'm like, do I really, you know, you kind of get to that place where you're like, how many more years do I have on this planet? And what do I want to be doing with them? And so for me, I realized I can't do the things I desire because my capacity is maxed out doing the things I don't desire.
Wow.
So I had to make some pretty big changes. So that was last year. But again, not having the filter desire and capacity. Those were not two words I was using the way I'm using them now. And now I'm like, on a daily going, do I have the capacity? That's more, I think, because I do have a lot of desires, but I'm really trying to lean into the capacity side. And that sometimes is really challenging because I want to do all the things I desire. I would love for Echo for you to speak into this because you kind of introduced this idea, or these two words just became really big for me. And even in our conversations and how you have journeyed through this, like you have come to realize this for yourself. And I would just love for you to kind of share some of that with our listeners.
Yeah. I was introduced to the words through a trauma-informed teacher, one of my favorites, actually. And it just felt like one of those ideas that as soon as he explained it, it just so many things clicked into place.
Wow.
And it explained so much and it clarified so much. And I think I brought it up with you, I think because we were talking about burnout.
Wow.
And I think we were talking about how you sold the property in October thinking you would rebound really quickly. Like you knew you were in burnout. I think you knew that starting in May or maybe even before May, where it just kind of hit you of like, I am so tired. I am so burned out. Like I think you started using that phrase at some point around there. And I think I'm just trying to like trace back and think through because we've had so many conversations. But I think the belief was, so I'll offload these responsibilities and then I'll feel such relief that I'll just get to jump into life. I'll get to jump into what I do desire because I'm going to offload what I don't desire. And so then I'll be able to leap into what I do desire. And that's not been what's happened at all.
No.
So you sold in October, and what you expressed to me through the following month, 2 months till now, although I have noticed a shift. So definitely that first month or two, such complete exhaustion that you've said you've never experienced before. And I could even see it like in your face and your movements, your expressions of just this absolute and complete drain of energy. And almost like having the flu, like you getting up in the morning and just being like, I can barely even lift my arms. Like I just want to crawl right back into bed. And you were experiencing that day after day after day and shocked because I think the anticipation, the belief was I'll feel such relief that I'll be like the lightest I've ever been. I'll be the most energetic I've ever been instantly. I think that was kind of the belief going into it. And so you were shocked and I think disappointed was what I noticed, what I experienced. And confused. You're like, this makes no sense. I've offloaded 90% of my responsibilities. So why am I waking up every morning and just instantly want to get back into bed? And then you started kind of asking like, when does that change? Like, how long does it take once you've made this radical life change? Do you just wake up one morning? Is it a flip of a switch? What is the process? Because this is not the process that I expected. And so I think it was through those conversations and talking specifically about burnout but deep, deep burnout, right? Where you kept using the phrase reserves, where you're like, I have always had reserves and I have none. And it's terrifying. And you think you're never going to get them back. And it's this panicky of like, who even am I? What am I even doing? So I think it was kind of through those conversations. And I then came across this concept from one of my favorite teachers. And so much clicked into place for me in my own life, just like looking back over the last 20 years even. And then I think I brought it to you because it felt related to what you were experiencing, where your capacity, like kind of the way your body has responded to years and years and years of living beyond your capacity. So when we talk about capacity, and as I said, the last episode, which maybe you guys have listened to, maybe not, for me, what everything always comes back to is the body, because we all have bodies. We're all going to have a body, like from your first breath to your last. You're stuck in a body. And that's a reality that we all have to deal with. But it's a reality that we don't address. We don't address culturally. We don't know how to address. We don't have the wisdom. We don't have the knowledge. We've lost that. And so we just feel this encumbered experience of, well, I'm stuck in this body that has a capacity, that has limited capacity to show up. So we have these minds, or you could say heart, spirit, some combination of, where I want to do all the things with all the people and for all the people. And so I have all these ideas and dreams. Some of it is responsibility, as in I want to be a good person. I want to take care of all the people. Others, it's just fun. I want to play. I want to go do the thing, right? And so that's all happening. But at the same time that my body is limited. My body is limited in what it has the energy for and what she is able to show up for, both in a realm of how do I care for my fellow man, and how do I have a great time too, right? Like both of those are desires. Taking care of people and having a good time are desires. Our bodies are very limited. Our biology is limited, and that is nature. And we can't change that. We can adjust our capacity. That's absolutely true. And we should definitely talk about that, and we will in just a moment. But in terms of the body has needs from the moment you take your first breath to your last, and that never changes. We don't graduate out of that. That's always true. And so learning to partner with those needs can create a life, a sustainable life, where we don't get to burnout, or we don't live in burnout, or we don't get to that place of panic of, I have no reserves left. I feel like I have the flu, but I don't have the flu. I went and got tested. I don't have the flu, but I have no energy to do anything ever. And so that moment of panic, will this last forever? How do I change it? I remember you asking that. Or maybe we were just kind of discussing it of like, okay, what does it take? Like once you reach this place, then what? What's the answer? Is there a solution? Is there a way that I can care for myself so that I don't wake up tomorrow and feel like I have the flu, or next week or next month? So ultimately, it's kind of that difference. It's that relationship between the capacity of the body and the desire of the mind/heart/spirit. And then learning how to partner the two. And kind of as you've both already expressed of like, I have all these desires and I have no capacity, right? And recognizing, because one of the things I recognized, and I know one of the first one was, I have 6 children, right? I have 6 children because I had a desire to have 6 children. I don't have the capacity to have 6 children, right? I don't think I had the capacity to have 3 children.
Yeah.
But I had no idea.
No idea. You don't know what you're getting into. Nobody tells you the truth about any of it. Yes. I'm a little bitter.
Oh, it's so overwhelming. Like once you start to learn these life lessons when it's way too late.
Oh yeah, they're here.
Look back and you go, almost every decision I've ever made was from desire, not capacity.
Wow.
And I have suffered for it.
Wow.
I have suffered deeply. My body has suffered, but I had no idea.
Wow.
I didn't know it was a thing, and I didn't know I had permission to live from my capacity. So a lot of the conversations we're having, or we've been having these last few weeks, are, okay, what do we do now? I can't go back, right? I can't change the past. I can't make different decisions when I was 25, but now I'm 41. So what can I do today, considering I now have the responsibilities that I have, considering I now am entangled in this very complex life situation for a lot of different reasons, not just because I have a lot of kids. So what do I do now? And so it feels like those are a lot of our conversations have centered around answering, because a lot of it's logistics. Okay, so I wake up this morning. What do I do first? When my feet hit the floor, like how do I get out of bed? And when do I get out of bed? If I am living from capacity rather than desire, or if I am working to grow my capacity so that they are more aligned, so that I can meet my desire and have the two at least a little bit closer. Because I know I'm the same way. Millions of desires and what feels like very, very low capacity.
Yeah. I keep thinking about, I think there's even different forms of capacity, and that may be complicating it, but because my emotional capacity has increased dramatically.
Oh,
I have a lot of space for emotional capacity now. Like Wes and my relationship, as it has healed, as we've gotten connected, my capacity has tripled what I can do now, what I could do 4 years ago when we were living in disconnect. And so a lot of my capacity now, it's logistical, it's time management, it's the needs of everyone else. But there have also been stages of my life where it has been an emotional capacity of, I don't have the mental ability to show up for anyone else. Like I don't have the emotional capacity to be there for anyone else because I am so empty myself. And so I think that also acknowledging that we're all in different stages, and so even our capacity is going to look different. A capacity of a mom that just had a baby in the last 2 years is going to look very different than a grandmother that gets her kids on the weekends. But then the grandmother's capacity for other things is going to look very different than the mom's. Like those seasons of life look different. So our capacities, I think, are going to be different.
No, I think that's actually, I don't think you're complicating it. I think that's brilliant. I think you're clarifying it, right? because you're saying that showing up in each of those ways, because it's even about decision making. So to say, well, I feel like I have the emotional capacity to show up for this. I just literally have no time.
Yeah.
Every single moment today is scheduled out. So yeah, I can show up. Like I do have the reserves. I have the emotional reserves to connect with this relationship. I have no time. Yeah. Every minute is scheduled out. And that's reality. Yeah. And so one or the other is determining, no, I can't show up for that today.
Yeah. So I think it's like tuning in and being like, okay, which capacity, where am I lacking in my capacity? Because I want to acknowledge that, because that's my favorite part of these tools is the level of capacity it's given me, and emotionally, mentally, that. But there are also days like during the election, I had no mental capacity.
Yeah.
None. Yeah. Because I was taking in so much from everywhere that I had to start limiting things. I had to really figure out what I could show up in. Right. So I think it's another layer of tuning in to yourself and being like, okay, where are there holes in my bucket for capacity? Because if I was trying to fix just the emotional capacity, but not the logistical, I wouldn't get anywhere right now. Where what I need to be working on is the logistical capacity versus the emotional.
Right. Well, and it's making me think of a few different examples. So like earlier you asked me about, I don't remember the word you used, but kind of like, can you watch this video and give me your thoughts about it?
Yes.
Or whatever, right?
Yep.
So of course my desire is what? I would love to, right? I would love to do that for you because I care about you. I would love to be able to engage with you in that way because it's things I care about. And then what my body said right after the moment of, yes, I have a desire, or my desire is to say yes. Almost in the same instance, I guess, at this point, in the same moment, my body contracted. And so what I know now is that if I tense up when something's suggested, or if my body does, like I wouldn't even say, because it's not that I was doing that on purpose. Yeah. I wasn't like meaning to tense up, but what I immediately noticed is, oh, wow, all my muscles just like braced, right? That's a great sign that I do not have the capacity. And I think what happened with that, so the very first moment is, oh, I care about you. I care about that thing. So yes. And then what my body, because then where my mind went was, okay, what are the logistics of that? I would have to find, 1 to 3 hours sometime this week. Okay, what else? And this all happened super fast, like process super fast through. It's like, okay, wait, what's on my list for this week? Oh, wow, I literally have no time until this weekend. And then that's when I'm trying to connect with my kids. It's like I ran through all these things of like, when could I put that above what I already have on my plate? And so my body's like bracing of like, please, And so always in the past, because I had no awareness of all of this and I never listened to my body, because you don't listen to your body. That's not what you do. I would have ignored the tension. I would have ignored the bracing, and I would have listened to, I care about you and I care about this thing.
Yeah.
And so I would have said yes.
Yep.
And I would have done that day after week, after month, after year, after decade.
Yep.
And then now learning these tools, these somatic tools over the last 5 years, and continuing to learn. Like every year, I feel like I have a fresh understanding and a deeper understanding of what it takes to have a body. That's all it boils down to. What does it take to have a body? We don't learn that. We don't learn that when we're children. We don't learn that when we're young adults. I hope that's changing for the future generations.
Yeah.
But for most of us, or for our generations, we're in our 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s before we begin to understand what it takes to have a body. And then tuning in and knowing we're allowed to listen to that body, and that body offers wisdom, and that body offers truth, and that body is working so hard to support us and our lives and our society and our families and our communities.
Yeah.
And so that's been a really big shift too, of like, oh, okay, so my mind, heart, spirit said yes. My body almost instantaneously said no. And I'm in a season right now where I'm loyal to my body. And there's exceptions, absolutely. Because if the baby has a poopy diaper, I change the poopy diaper. It doesn't matter if I'm exhausted. It doesn't matter if I'm in pain. I get up and I change the diaper.
Yeah. Or
if he's screaming in the middle of the night, which although I partner with my husband with that, so it's not always me. But even with that, like one of us is going to get up. Our body is telling us to sleep. Our baby needs our attention. And so we go with the baby. Yeah. So yes, there's absolutely exceptions to this, but it's about lifestyle. It's not about those exceptions where you have to change the diaper, you have to get up in the middle of the night. Yeah. And so when you look back, you want to be able to string together a pattern. You want to be able to string together a cycle where you are listening to your body first rather than listening to your mind, heart, spirit, desire first. Yeah.
I think that's really important to think about, because even initially starting this conversation, I was thinking about it from the, oh, I need more capacity to fulfill the desire. But how you're sharing it is so eye-opening, because I do think a lot of people, and I would say especially women, tend to go into the category of, I'm going to say yes to these parts of the desire, but ignore the capacity part. So then they're always on empty.
Yeah.
They're always running on empty because they're just giving and giving and giving and giving of themselves to things that, some things they don't even care about. Some things, yes, they may care about, but some things they probably don't. They're just saying yes because we don't know how to say no to other people or ourselves even. And so we don't have capacity because we don't know how to say no in those moments.
Yeah.
And so in that area, we do have control over capacity. It takes listening. It takes working through the fear of saying no. Like, I'm not saying that it's easy, and I'm not saying there's not emotion tied to it at all, but there does come this choice of, if I have limited capacity, where do I want to spend that capacity? Who do I want to give that to? And am I going to honor what my needs are? You know, like Phyllis was talking earlier about, she's at a stage of life where, like, her extra capacity, she wants to give to her children.
Yeah.
She wants to give that to her grandchildren. So if she is only giving her capacity to a business, to a house, to these people coming and staying on her property, she has no more capacity for her children. And so being able to tune into what actually matters for her in this season and saying yes to that. Because otherwise, she would be still doing all of those things that are nice and helpful, but her body is suffering. And she is creating more spirals of pain, which then create less capacity.
It's a vicious cycle.
It's a vicious cycle. So her actually saying yes to my children and grandchildren, the thing that fuel her capacity, she now has more capacity for the business. She actually now has more capacity to show up for other people because she's saying yes to the things that matter the most to her. Would you agree?
Yeah, it is complicated in some ways. You know, we've talked in the past year, I know, over what brings joy. What are your pain points? What are your joy points, right? We've talked about there being balance in your life. Like, if your pain points outweigh your joy points, what fuels you? Your life is super out of balance. So I feel like with this topic today, for me, it's an actual filter. I love that concept of name your pain points. That was a big starting point for me. I didn't even know I had the right to name my pain points, like to address my pain points. So that was a big shift for me to go, oh, I thought you just bear it. I thought that's just what you do.
Yeah.
You just grin and bear it, or you just privately, if you're faith-based, pray about it. It's just your struggle, right? We all have struggles, crosses to bear, right? Well, then when I learned, no, you get to actually talk about them, it was big time, life-changing for our family, for our household. And my pain points that I was just carrying most of them were able to be shifted pretty quickly. But I think that in talking about desire and capacity, it is, to me, another level. I even think of it as an actual filter. Like, when I, on a daily basis, run through, do I have the capacity for this? If someone asks me, and I've also slowed down on this, like, what are your dreams? We get that question. I get that question a lot because now we're nomads. What's on your bucket list? I'm like, oh, no. I don't even have a capacity to think about that. I don't have the capacity, and not that I don't want to. It's I literally don't have the capacity to. And part of it, Echo shared, like, the last night on that property, I think that I walked away completely out of fuel, like never in my life. Like Echo said, I had no reserves and I'd never experienced that before. Glenn walked away from the property with a lot of fuel. That's how I experienced him. And at times he's even said that, like, he would be skipping and running ahead and he would all of a sudden stop and realize I wasn't beside him, and he'd turn around and he'd see me in the distance, like, oh, where are you? Because I had nothing. But it was interesting. We left the property. We were at the big barn on Echo and Chaz's property for 2 days. And then we flew to the beach. And I gave myself 1 day to sit on the balcony. And then I'm like, okay, that's it. Get going. Get up. Get going. And it's like, what in the world? Like, that is the dumbest. Like, no, it's not a 1 day. And then you're refueled and you get up and get going and tell yourself, come on, get out there, go for a walk. And it's like, wow, that was the last thing I needed. I needed to sit, I don't know for how many days. I needed to actually, I can't even imagine what this would be like. I needed to stay in bed for a whole day.
Yeah.
I don't even know what that's
I thought
like.
you were going to say a couple weeks. I thought you needed to stay in bed for a couple of weeks.
Oh, well, see, I don't even give myself one day to stay in bed.
I was with her. I partnered with her to help get rid of that property. It was all day, every day. Was it 5 months that it took?
Probably.
All day.
Yeah.
Every day. We went through stuff, or I wasn't there every day. You were right in the middle of it every day. It was on you. I was a side character. But even the amount of times I showed up, I was exhausted.
Right.
And I was there a small fraction of the amount of time that you were there. But it started in June. So all day, every day from June to October.
Yeah.
That's how big of a property it was. That's what it took to either donate or sell or throw away, sort through, put into storage, give
Facebook
away,
Marketplace.
give to the kids, give to the grandkids, give to the nieces and nephews.
Yeah.
So I'm just imagining I wake up, I spend the entire day, I go to bed, I wake up. And she did that for however many months. I'm not very good at math.
Can I add
However
one
many
layer
months
to that?
was. Yeah, please.
And because it's easy to think, well, I go to work all day. This is also an emotional process as well. These are your memories, your childhood, your livelihood. Like
everything.
There's an emotional layer to what was happening.
Yes.
As
Well, and they were still running a business the whole time.
Yeah.
And she was still giving to her community the whole time and her marriage. So it's not like she was able to pause real life. So she continued her real life and spent time all day, every day dealing with either delegating, but having to manage the delegating, or literally hand by hand, packing and sorting item by item. I don't know, like I can feel it just sitting here because of how hard it was for me. And I was a teeny tiny little part of it, right?
Yeah.
Like by the time October came, I was like, I need to stay in bed for a few weeks. And I only did a small fraction of what she undertook.
Yeah.
So anyway, what I heard in my head, what I thought you were going to say was stay in bed for a few weeks. Like that's what I heard. And then you go a day. And I'm like, a day?
Yeah. And I didn't even allow myself that, right? I sat on in a chair on a balcony looking at the ocean for one day. And then I'm like, okay, get up, get going. And so to me, the filter, right? The filter of saying, do I have the capacity for this?
Yeah.
Makes you tune into your body. Because you're asking your body. I feel like, and I have said this to people, it's a season. Tuning into your body is not a season. That's forever. Running it through the filter, do I have a capacity, is not a season. It's forever. But it's the reality that if right now my body says no to traveling, then I need to listen to my body. That doesn't mean no forever.
Right.
And interestingly enough, I had 2 friends reach out in the last month for 2 different trips. And one of them, I immediately tuned in, ran it through the filter, and I immediately said, I don't have the capacity for that trip.
That's amazing.
And it was hard for me to say that.
Yeah.
I did feel guilt saying no to a good friend. Definitely shame that I don't have the capacity. So I did all the processing of the emotions that I had to go through or run through. And she was beautiful. Her response, I explained the whole capacity. And I even told her, I said, I have the desire. I just don't have the capacity. I feel really sad about that, but I don't, to join you on that trip. And then another friend, probably 2 weeks after that, asked about another trip. And my body said, I have the capacity for that one.
Wow.
I don't even understand it. I do in the some of the practicalities. And I told her that. I said, I'm really trying to tune in. So I'm asking my body, do I have the capacity? And I just don't know when. And that's probably the difference of the 2 trips. One is it's whenever I am able, like as there's not a time, where the other one was very much a time. There were dates set. It had to be this time. And I'm like, okay, that's really interesting that my body said yes to one and no to the other. As many of you know, if you have been listening to our podcast, Glenn and I cruise a lot. So in January, Glenn was like, when are we going to book our next cruise? When are we going to book? And my body said, no capacity, no capacity.
Wow.
As much as we love that, no capacity. And so I just kind of followed his energy, like, yeah, dream, let's dream. You look at all the different ones, but I had no capacity to really tune in, to make that happen. So it's just been fascinating to see my body actually answers the question. Do I have the capacity?
Yeah.
And I'm fascinated by that. Even with, I want to get out and I want to move my body every day. I want to do physical exercise every day. And I have had days where it's like, nope, today is a no. You do not have the capacity today. And it's like, wow, am I going to listen or am I going to stick to my goals?
Yeah.
Because we're a goal-oriented society. Like, wait, I made a commitment to my exercise plan. I'm a failure if I say no.
Yeah.
But my body says, today you don't have the capacity.
Right.
So you need to say no.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you said the word filter, the phrase I heard in my head was it's a decision-making process. And so often it feels like we don't know how to make decisions, and we're presented with so many options. It's the upside downside of modern America, right? We have every store you walk into, you have to make 1 million decisions while you're there. Thank goodness. And also it's horrible, right? And so our brains hurt so much. We're exhausted.
Decision fatigue.
Absolutely. Like it's a real thing.
Yeah.
And it causes a lot of problems and we're all caught up in it.
Yeah.
And so I was just thinking through that lens that I like the word filter. And then another way of looking at it is that it's a way to make decisions. Like it simplifies everything because you just go, oh, well, in this season of life, hopefully forever, but in this season of life, my body gets to decide. And what my body says is, no, I can't do that. I'm not doing that.
I think about too, if I think about myself over the last X amount of months, even before I really started using this language, my body was saying to me, you don't have the capacity to go to the grocery store, so don't go in there. And I have expressed this, especially to my kids. I think you and I have talked about it.
Yeah.
Tera and I have talked about it. I just was like, I can't even go to the grocery store, which also was, I don't have the capacity to cook.
Yeah.
It was multiple layers. And here's the thing, I think this would be a good transition into this because, okay, what do you do if you all of a sudden realize you don't have the capacity to go into a grocery store?
Yeah. I'll tell you what to do.
I know. Well, hold on, because if you stay silent in this journey and you don't share your capacity with others, you may drown in that because you may not have the solution for what to do. And Echo and I actually talked a lot about this on our trip because when she's expressing to me her capacity, but she has 6 children. It's not like you go, oh, I don't know how to do this, so let me farm them out. You go, oh, we need solutions. And I called them dream solutions. Let's just dream. Let's just do some dream solutions. And I think when you talk about it, you actually can get outside help that gives you solutions that on your own you may have never thought of.
Yeah.
Because when you say to me, or when I say, I can't go to the grocery store, but we do have to eat, then basically and maybe it's because we're old people, I don't know, but the answer is go out to eat. Not even DoorDash. Heaven forbid, that's too modern. Don't even know how to get that app on my phone, right? So forget that. You got to get in the car and you got to go to a restaurant to feed your body.
Wow.
Because I don't have the capacity to go to a grocery store. But that's not the only solution. So when you actually talk to people, for me, it was people much younger than I got some solutions. You can actually do this thing called DoorDash. I still don't like it. They take too long. I have no patience with that. So forget DoorDash in my life. Don't like it. Don't like it at all. Or they get your order wrong. Forget that.
I could kiss DoorDash people.
Yeah, I bet you could, but not me. It makes me mad. I just no, thank you. Or you can do something, and I know Tera's all about this. I still haven't mastered this either, but you can order your groceries or something.
Yeah.
They can actually deliver them. That's what people say.
Oh,
I've never tried that.
My grocery man now, I have it set up where he will come in my house
and put your groceries away.
And put my groceries away.
What?
And I want to kiss him. Obviously not in a non-romantic way, but I'm so in love with this person that he does this for my family. It's the greatest thing in my life. Yeah. So we can schedule it when if I'm home, like yesterday I was in a meeting, came in, put the groceries in the fridge and in the freezer. And it's 10 out of 10. Most amazing thing.
Yeah.
Are you going to post that link under the podcast episode?
Yeah, I will definitely post that. And another thing that we do is we use ChatGPT to help us with our meal planning. So I have a family of 6. I grocery shop at Aldi or Walmart or whatever. This is my budget. This is what I currently have in the fridge. Can you make a protein-rich meal plan for my family next week?
Stop.
And it'll give me the recipes. It'll give me the ingredients. It'll give me the grocery list. I think my capacity also, because I have systems.
You will
create a system for everything.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I love that. And I do want to say I have so much joy about this because Bridget Blood has been on our podcast as well. She hangs around us a lot. And she yesterday sat with me and got on an app, signed me up, did all this stuff. And my meals are going to arrive fully cooked, ready to go at my house on Sunday for all next week.
That's amazing. Yeah.
And
amazing.
That is a solution right now that makes so much sense. You don't have to cook it.
Yep.
It's all super healthy stuff.
Yeah.
And it's 7 days worth. I mean, I have to heat it up, but it comes fully prepared.
Wow.
Right. And I told Glenn about it last night. He was so cute because he goes, that's way too much food. What do we do? Like a panic? I go, we freeze it. He goes, we freeze it? So I'm like, babe, we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. We're just going to try this. Like
An experiment.
Yeah.
It's an experiment because I get it that you may have going out to eat may not be a problem, but I realize that I don't want that to be our solution.
Yeah.
Like we do it and we enjoy it, but there's times I'm actually hungry at lunch and I want food. But I don't want to go to the grocery store. I'm still so like, I think I've been once since you sold. Well, okay. I mean,
well, you've only been in town for 2 weeks since you sold the house, so.
It feels like, but I mean, I knew I have been home in Nashville for 2 weeks solid. And I was like, I knew I was going to be here a month. And then we're only gone for a short weekend to do an event in Austin, Texas. February 20th, just in case you're listening and you were like, what? You're going to be in Austin? So shout out to Austin, Texas. We're doing a live event. But I was like, ought to go to the grocery store. And actually made a list. So that's really big that I actually even made a list and went to the grocery store. But I just realized I've not had the capacity and I didn't have the desire either. But yeah, you got to eat.
Yeah.
Right. And so having people to talk to, like Tera is always full of great ideas, which is what I told you. And then we connected when we were like out in California because Tera, I think we said, Tera, what is your systems? Because Echo needs systems for her big family. And because sometimes you got to talk about your limit. Like, I don't have the capacity for that, but I got to do it. I got to eat. So it's just so great when you can talk about this. I think that we suffer in silence so much.
Yes.
And we shame ourselves in it. Like, as in, I'm not going to tell anybody that I don't have the capacity to go to the grocery store. They're going to think I'm lame or like, well, that's pretty pitiful or stupid because you can just order your groceries. Like, you feel so much judgment in it that you just suffer in silence.
Yeah. Instead
of going, well, guys, right now I just don't have the capacity.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that that's a huge part of it is one, recognizing where, like, I agree, the pain points and joy points that can reveal capacity and it can increase capacity if you can recognize what is the pain point. So grocery shopping for you was not only a pain point, but because it was a pain point, it was stealing your capacity. It feels even bigger because it's a pain point. So recognizing that, I think, is step one. And then also getting creative about how to rework those. Because you're right, like you still need food. But we live in an era where we can get creative, whether it's getting on Pinterest, like type in creative ways to do laundry as a family of 6. Like, what can help me find a system to make laundry better? If that's a big, which if you're a family of 6, that's a huge capacity taker. Meal planning, how to even like spend time with friends. I saw recently on a reel, a group of women that they will like every week go to one of the friends' houses and do a deep clean. And they make it fun because it's you're hanging out with your best friends. So it's like the kids are all in one room playing and all of these moms are getting together, cleaning with each other, laughing, having a great time. And that's a way that they are solving that capacity problem. It's really getting curious about where the problems lie and researching systems to solve it.
I love that.
And so I don't know. I think that so many people get stuck because we have that limiting belief of this is just how it has to be.
Yeah. Limiting belief is a good.
Yeah. Like this is just where we're at. It has to be this way.
Yeah. Well, or I agree. And then we also think, eventually the kids will leave home. And it's like, guys, you're doing so much damage to your body by having the mentality that I'm just going to keep plugging along. I'm just going to keep pushing. I'm going to keep ignoring myself because eventually these kids will be grown.
Yeah.
And it's like, I know that I'm still fresh to all of this as far as what I've been going through. So sometimes I go, give me another maybe a year and then I can talk about this a little better. But I think I've heard too many stories where when you are a caretaker and then you stop being that caretaker, your body completely collapses.
Wow.
And I think it's because I saw this with my own mom. She took care of my dad till he died of cancer. I think it's because you ignore yourself to have the capacity to care for this person. And then when you no longer have to take care of that person, all of your systems just go crazy in a way. That's kind of where I feel like I am right now. Like I'm discovering all kinds of things that are kind of whacked out of my body. And I think I ignored him because I didn't have the capacity to do both. I didn't have the capacity to be a caretaker of a 96-year-old and a caretaker of a very large property with rental people and all of their needs and all the things that had to be done and running connection codes and private practice and all the things that we do. So it's like, oh, the easiest thing was to ignore myself, my body. That's what I ignored. Well, then you're going to pay the price at some point. So it's much better to tune in now.
Yeah.
It is. But I think it takes this talking about it. And because I feel like on your trip, we made some pretty big, like, put this in, make this Friday night thing happen, make Friday day happen. And I don't know how long that will even be necessary.
Right.
But it was like, no, this has to happen now. That was part of Echo's story. For me, I'm still trying to figure out, but I have had some, like, I got to go see this person. I need to figure this out. I need to try this new thing because I got to see some results. I got to see some shifts and changes in my health. And so I'm like, okay, go get this checked out. And now you got to deal with this and you can't ignore it anymore. You know, I think it's almost like I ignored it because I didn't have the capacity, but now I've got to have the capacity. It's that important.
Yeah.
So
one thought that just crossed my mind, and it's a reference to the last episode that we recorded earlier, but how we talked about how like me being in the driver's seat versus the judge being in the driver's seat. And I think another way you could look at that is my body being in the driver's seat versus the judge being in the driver's seat. And so it's that same, so like your body speaks up as we've acknowledged in these last few minutes. And then the judge wants to stop that, right? The judge wants to stop us from acknowledging and regarding and honoring.
so true.
And we learned in childhood to trust the judge and listen to the judge. And now we're at a time in our lives as adults to go, thank you so much, judge. You kept me alive and I'll take it from here. And my body will take it from here. And we can change that cycle. We can disrupt that cycle and create a healthier cycle that produces vitality rather than just survival. At the time, it was necessary for survival. And now we can move past survival into vitality by taking the judge out of the driver's seat. Thank you so much. And even honoring that, it's kind of like we talked about earlier, or no, sorry, that was a different episode. But where you were talking about, like, I wish I had made different decisions when I was younger. I wish I'd been more assertive. I wish I'd protected myself or defended myself. And then we acknowledge that you were doing the best you could with what you had at the time. And it kept you alive.
Right.
Your brain kept you alive. Your body kept you alive, which is exactly what it was supposed to do. Right. So yes, we can experience all the emotion about that. The regret, the shame, the sadness, the grief. Yes. And we can say, thank you so much. Thank you, brain. Thank you, body. Thank you, nervous system. You did exactly what you needed to do to keep me alive through that experience. We can do the same thing with the judge. Like, we can thank the judge. And that's an appropriate thing to do. Thank you so much, judge. You kept me alive. And now my body will take it from here. And we're creating a new cycle and a new pattern and a new lifestyle for ourselves because we believe in it, because we believe in the goodness that comes from it, and because we believe in what it can do for our communities. And we haven't even really talked about that in this conversation. Like, we're just talking about it in terms of our own health and disrupting the pain cycle. But you disrupt the pain cycle for yourself, you disrupt the pain cycle for your community.
Yeah.
It is inevitable.
Yeah.
It cannot be stopped. And so to acknowledge that as well, it feels really important.
Yeah.
That this isn't just about me and now I get to have this good life and no one and everyone else has to keep suffering. Absolutely not. Every time we disrupt a pain cycle within us, we disrupt the pain cycle in our communities.
Wow.
That's how life works.
Yeah.
That's how humanity works.
Yeah.
And to keep that in mind too. That's true for our marriages, our children, our friendships. If we're teachers, it's our school systems. If we're in the medical community, it's our patients. Like every time I disrupt a pain cycle for myself, I disrupt it for everybody around me too.
Yeah. I love that. That's so good. So good. For me, one of the biggest ways that I have disrupted the pain cycle within myself and grown my capacity is through learning how to process my emotions and through using the tools of the connection codes to actually identify what is bringing me pain. Oh, what area of my life am I lonely that I need support in? Okay, where is this joy? And really being able to get super clear about what's happening inside my body so I can expand my capacity. And it has truly expanded my capacity exponentially.
Yeah.
And I still need rest. I still need those things, but I now know to advocate for that in a way that I did not previously. And so we are going to now go into the 4-minute tool, the tool that Dr. Glenn and Phyllis created that actually helps you relearn what those emotions feel like in your body, how to identify what's happening so you can tune in and get these results that we are talking about. And so, Echo, are you going to do the core emotion wheel for us?
Try.
Okay.
Doing it on the fly always feels so hard.
I get that.
I don't even know why.
There's one next to you if you need to look at one. It's in
No,
the, okay.
I think I'm okay. Okay. The first thing that came to mind was fear. I just signed up for 2 college classes to continue on with that goal.
Wow.
It's actually gone really smoothly so far, but I'm only a few weeks in. And I do feel this low level, almost constant fear because I have deadlines every week, many deadlines every week. And I feel this fear that I'm going to miss the deadline and I'm going to get a 0 and it's going to drop my grade. So that's kind of ever present right now.
Wow.
I'm feeling it right this minute, in fact, because I have several things due tomorrow. So of course, the good thing is it's motivating me to do the assignments, right? But it's uncomfortable. That buzzing fear is uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Okay, that was the first thing that came to mind. Loneliness has actually been at I think an all-time low in a way lately. That's very exciting. Typically what I end up talking about is motherhood because of how lonely motherhood is. But I have been more supported in this season from all these topics of talking about capacity and talking about my pain and asking for help and receiving help. And so I actually feel less, although I would say in general, motherhood is heavy and lonely. And that's always what comes to mind first. But that has decreased for me lately. I've had a lot of support lately. It's been really, really incredible. So I don't know if that's appropriate to answer it that way, but that's what comes to mind. Hurt. I'm going to use the physical as well because I did a workout yesterday. My muscles are very, very sore. So even though it's a good pain and a good hurt, every time I stand up, it hits me again.
Yeah.
Every time I walk those first few steps, it's like, So that's lots of pain, but good pain. Okay, wait, what's next? Sadness. I feel a general sadness every winter. It's part of why we've traveled the last 2 winters because it gets pretty severe and debilitating for me. So yeah, anytime the weather's cold or dreary or gray, the skies are gray, I get hit with a lot of sadness. It's very painful, very uncomfortable. Anger. I have felt a lot of what we've been talking about as far as the core level anger. My default is to live in freeze. And lately I've had this consistent burning anger that has driven my movements and driven my creativity and driven my assertiveness. And so in a way, it feels like I'm in a season of life of reconnecting with and getting to enjoy the fruits of my anger. So yeah, the anger part, the anger piece the last few months has actually been really productive and healthy, I would say. Okay, I lost track a little bit. 4 or 5. I think that was 5.
Guilt and shame?
Guilt and shame. I mean, guilt has a company, although I'm reprocessing what guilt feels like for me. I'm also in a season of that. And it came from learning about guilt means when you've acted out of alignment with your values. Like learning that lesson has made me kind of rethink, okay, then what is guilt? And what does it feel like in my body? And am I living out of alignment with my values?
Wow.
So what comes to mind with that is caring for my kids and re-examining what that looks like and what it looks like to show up for them from my capacity versus my desire and showing up for them in a way that meets my needs and their needs and just how to navigate that. I feel like I'm in this new season of all of that. So all that to say, I do feel guilt when I feel like I've missed it with them, where it was like where their needs were unmet or we didn't have quality time or I said I would do something and then I didn't do it. So a lot of my guilt does revolve around how I show up for them, but I'm also trying to reprocess, well, what are my values as a mom, like and in how I show up.
Wow.
I'm trying to learn myself, right? Because I'm at that point where I don't care what the culture says I should be doing. I want to figure out my own values and just live for my own values.
Yeah.
And not listen to everybody else's voices related to that. Shame. Shame. Whoa. I'm drawing a blank. That's super weird because I usually experience a whole lot of shame.
Last time or a big time?
Yeah. The word that just came to mind was privilege. I am very, very privileged. I have shame that is partnered with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hear that.
I've been given so much, and I've been given so much more than so many people.
Wow.
Yeah. I didn't know that was in there. Or I kind of knew it, but that's interesting that came out today. So I'll have to sit with that. Yeah.
Joy.
Shame
What about
about
joy?
my privilege. Joy in this season of life. Like, I feel very supported. I feel like I'm going after my dreams and yet still connected with the people that I love, which feels like such a good balance.
Wow.
I have a 1-year-old who's so cute. So tons and tons of joy in this season of motherhood with him. Like 1-year-olds are hard. Like when they're little, it's so hard, but the joy is so overwhelming.
Yeah.
He is just ridiculously delicious and cute. And I can't get enough of his yumminess. So
Yep.
that's what comes to mind with
I
that.
love that. Thank you for sharing. And
Thanks for listening.
thank you for opening up this topic. You know, the two of you started in a car on a road trip and now bringing it here. I know so many people that benefit, myself included, from being reminded of these things. And really, for me, thinking through of what am I saying yes to that is taking capacity for things that I want to have capacity for and honoring that. So if you are listening and you're like, I need some support in this. I need to figure out where my pain is, where my joy is, because I don't even know. Y'all just shared all these emotions. I don't even know any of those emotions. There is a link in the show notes where you can start the journey of being able to tune into yourself. And you can start by journaling it out, writing it out, saying it out loud. And then when you reach a point where you have safety in your partnership, in your marriage, with a close friend, for you to be able to share and co-regulate with someone else. So please click the link in the show notes and grab that. Echo, thank you so much for being here. There will be links in the show notes where you can connect with Echo as well, find out more about all that she is doing and learning and bringing to the world. And also you do sessions. So just how you can continue to connect with her outside of this screen and audio moment. So thank you for being here. And as Glenn and Phyllis say, we do this because
We need this.
You deserve this. So let's do this.
let's do this.